The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the WZWA Network. This is your review for the debut episode of AEW Collision, and I am your host, that JOOSEYBOY. It's Jooseyboy, and I'm rolling Han Solo for this review, my first ever solo review on the WZWA Network. Tonight's debut episode of AEW Collision took place from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness on commentary, accompanied by the legendary Jim Ross for the main event. The first thing I'll comment on, therefore, is the arena and the look. The show opens with Elton John, Saturday Night to Ride for Fightin'. I think it's refreshing to have just a classic, traditional rock song opening up the show, especially one that's kind of a retro rock song. I think it's a unique touch since most wrestling promotions, they tend to use music that's considered more current or more popular to audiences these days. But I felt like this set the tone for this show. It differentiates it immediately from the other show. I thought the stage looked good. It looked very sleek. It wasn't too busy. I didn't feel like I was going to have another seizure and end up going into a coma for a second time every time I watched somebody's entrance, so the set was impressive, but I didn't feel like it was bawdy or overdone. We immediately go from the opening credits into chants for CM Punk, overwhelming chants for CM Punk, which just go to show that he is now and always was the top draw and biggest star in AEW. I think that, there may have been people trying to deny that, trying to argue that Omega or, somebody else, even Darby Allin or MJF, may have been the biggest star of the company. I love MJF and Darby Allin, two of the examples I just used, but I think CM Punk is far and away the top draw and leading face of this company. And the chants that opened up this show, they showed that. Before he even said a word, in my opinion, he'd kind of already, he'd won the argument against the Bucks and Omega, just based off of that crowd reaction alone. He comes out. The promo was great. He was fired up. He was articulate. He didn't shy away from getting a bit spicy. I thought the part where he was saying the truth is painful, I thought that was a great line. The counterfeit Bucks line was amazing. I'm not going to go through word for word and go through all the verbiage. This one gets a Jooseyboy recommendation. Go out of your way to check it out because I can't do it justice on my own. This promo was everything that it should have been as far as starting a new brand, starting the first episode of the new brand off hot, and also satisfying that craving that the fans have all been having to hear what CM Punk has to say on this situation within a wrestling context. Kevin Kelly saying, "Damn, son," after Punk dropped the mic at the end of the promo, popped me huge. I'd probably give this promo an A-. I thought it was really good. I don't quite think that it hit the level of his very first promo when he first returned, but that would have been a very high standard to meet because that was a great promo, but this was a great promo too. We moved straight into the very first match of this show, and one thing that will be a running theme for me throughout this episode was I liked the pacing of this episode in comparison to episodes of Dynamite and Rampage that I've seen in the past, because you could tell that they had a time limit and they were really trying to make sure they crammed as much as they could into this episode, and therefore they didn't have time to mess around the way that they normally would on Dynamite. So we started off with the TNT title match, Wardlow defending against Luchasaurus, managed by Christian. Wardlow is definitely a star. If he's not already a star, he's a star in the making for sure. And Christian is a potential manager of the stars when he hangs up his boots permanently and finally retires for good. I think there's a future for him as a manager. I think he's just fantastic in that role. I liked that they actually started this match out with a collar and elbow tie-up. I like that they're actually acknowledging that these are both big guys, and so they shouldn't be able to prance around and do as much of the gymnastic stuff as the smaller guys in the promotion are known to do, even though we did see a little bit of that. Luchasaurus's strikes, I like that he has a quite a different variety of strikes and that he changes it up, but every time he does strikes, it looks like he's underwater. It looks like he's afraid of actually hitting him. Even when he swings a clothesline that's going to be ducked, it looks like he's worried that they won't duck. And he doesn't really swing it. You've really got to swing for the fences, when you're going to be missing a clothesline. But even the strikes that are connecting, it just feels like, even when contact is made and it looks good, the actual speed of the maneuver just seems slowed down by 50%, as if he's trying to perform the maneuver in the deep end of a swimming pool. Christian was the best element of this match for, I'd say, the first third of it. He was just outstanding. The commentary, Nigel McGuinness and Kevin Kelly, they've worked together a lot before. Breath of fresh air. No Excalibur, no weird Japanese names for everything, no talking about obscure, unknown indie wrestlers as if they're household names. No joking around and being silly when things could be being taken more seriously. These announcers treated it like it was a sport, and it worked really well. The pacing of this match was exactly what it needed to be for this kind of match, meaning a big man versus big man championship match on TV. I would honestly prefer a standard ad break over picture-in-picture. Picture-in-picture is really annoying. That is not the last time you're going to hear me mention that. It feels like most of Luchasaurus' heat is happening during said ad break, and that's a bit of a shame, because I thought Luchasaurus was having one of his better outings here that I've seen from him. Nigel McGuinness is popping me big. I'm already a huge fan of his. Again, this feels like it's an actual big man match. They're keeping it basic, but everything they're doing is competently executed, which I haven't been always able to say for every match that I've seen these two guys in. Great swanton off the top by Wardlow. That was kind of his last big moment to shine in this match. Loved the finish with Christian grabbed a camera from a ringside photographer and smashed it over Wardlow's head when the referee was distracted by Luchasaurus. And Luchasaurus got the pin and became the new TNT champion. I thought it was a great finish. I thought that it was a good way to protect Wardlow if you were going to have him lose. And I thought that it was nice to see an actual traditional, simple, effective, heel cheats to win with the help of the manager type of finish. I do not really agree with Luchasaurus winning the championship. I thought that there was still a lot more that could be done for Wardlow as TNT champion. And I really think that in any case, having him lose this match not on pay-per-view was a bit of a mistake. But all that aside, I thought this was good. It was a nice way to start the show, and I gave it a B-. Sorry, start the show wrestling-wise, I should say. Next thing, we moved on again, nice and quickly, which I appreciated, to Andrade El Idolo versus Buddy Matthews. Now, this match wasn't spoiled for me beforehand, but I did see, before I had actually gotten around to watching this match myself, I saw a post from Ric Flair on Facebook mentioning that he had seen this match, obviously between his son-in-law, Andrade, and Buddy Matthews, and that he felt like it was one of the best matches he's seen all year that didn't involve Charlotte. And I popped that he mentioned, that he qualified it by saying one of the best matches he's seen in years that didn't include Charlotte. Because, you know, some people might be annoyed by that comment, but, like, it's his daughter. You know, of course he's going to just think that she's the greatest professional wrestler to ever live. So, I already knew going in that this could be expected to be a pretty good match based on that Facebook post. Both of these two looked great. They're in tremendous shape. Everything they were doing was physical and it was crisp and they were laying it in there and they weren't flubbing it and they were taking their time and going through everything properly. Announcers, again, Nigel and Kevin Kelly were doing a great job treating this like a sport, and they got both of these guys over. And Andrade doing a cartwheel on the apron into a moonsault popped the living shit out of me. It honestly did. Why even add the cartwheel? You know what I mean? Like, why even... What's even the point? But it still looked amazing. But because Andrade is known to be the kind of person who would just show off, just to kind of show that he can do something, the cartwheel is not as annoying as it may be in, say, an indie match, because there's context from the character as to why he's performing that cartwheel before doing the moonsault off the apron. These guys are disguising the heel spots that they did in this match very well as being part of a fight in the larger context. So they didn't just do a whole bunch of crazy shit just for the sake of it. They did a bunch of crazy stuff, but it felt organic in the context of the story that they were saying. Perfect work on the injured pec of Andrade by Buddy Matthews. I thought that was great. Whether Buddy Matthews' knee was really injured in that meteor or not, it added to the match. I thought he did a great job selling the knee for the remainder of this match, and I thought that Andrade did a great job working on his knee for the remainder of the match, especially since that sets up the finish later on. The DDT from Buddy Matthews catching Andrade out of the ropes was awesome. I liked the spot with Buddy Matthews' knee giving way twice on 2 consecutive powerbomb attempts, because that really sets up the idea that, okay, it's a target. Andrade is like a shark that smells blood in the water, and he hits that figure 4. Turns it into a figure 8 in tribute to his real-life partner, Charlotte Flair. The crowd really popped for that. I really liked the finish. I thought this match was fantastic. It's got a Jooseyboy recommendation. Go out of your way to check it out because I can't do it justice, except to say that I personally awarded it an A-. Alright, moving on here, and again, we continued moving on really nice and quick. We had Miro making his return after... I didn't even know. It's got to be at least a year, right? Like, it's at least got to be a year by now since we've last seen him. So it was Miro. Toni Nese was the sacrificial lamb that they chose to feed to Miro. And I want to actually take a second here to, on that note, give Toni Nese a bit of extra credit, because... he did an absolutely phenomenal job making Miro look like a badass. I liked that Nese got in some things. And not just like the typical squash match kind of flurry where he hit a few punches and a drop kick and then that was all. He just got dominated. It was, you know, there were several different hope spots that were given to Toni Nese as the underdog in this match. But each hope spot that he did demonstrated that Toni Nese in his own right is an accomplished and experienced professional wrestler, which of course only adds to making it more impressive that Miro was able to beat him in such a dominant fashion. Boom, sidekick, stomp to the back, accolade, and Nese tapped out. I thought it was a really great match. I gave it a C- because obviously... although I thought that it served its role perfectly, it was still just a squash match that only went for a few minutes. So that's why it's only getting a C- for anyone that might be thinking that that might be a little low. Okay, moving on to the women's tag match that followed next. It was AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm and Ruby Soho taking on Willow Nightingale and Sky Blue. They started this thing off pretty chaotically. I don't necessarily know if that was the right move to start it off on the outside like that, considering it ended up just being a pretty standard tag match. So it's almost like they started out as if it was going to be this wild, brawling affair, and it ended up just being a pretty paint-by-numbers tag match. They did keep it simple, but they executed everything competently, with the exception of right at the beginning, when they did start it off on the outside. Sky Blue was getting jumped on the outside by Toni Storm and Ruby Soho. And you see Willow Nightingale sort of comes in off screen and delivers a pounce to Ruby Soho into the guardrail. But I have to say it was extremely recklessly executed on Willow Nightingale's part. I'm sure Ruby Soho knew that that was going to be coming because they pre-plan everything these days. But I mean, she pretty much wiped out Ruby Soho like as if she was just doing the move for a shoot, and like the back of Ruby's head just slammed into that metal guardrail, and like aside from the visual looking gnarly, it looked dangerous to me. It's lucky she didn't get really badly hurt. But beyond that, I thought these ladies worked pretty hard. Picture in Picture showed up again in this match. Okay? Picture in Picture, for a match like this that doesn't really have much heat and for which no one has tuned into this show to see, Picture in Picture kills all the momentum a match like this has. Because they went into the match. This match was on cold, basically. It wasn't the culmination of a feud or the beginning of a major program. It was just kind of continuing on an issue that's building, and it's been ongoing within AEW. And that's fine and all, but the fact that they went to Picture in Picture in the middle of this, just, I could almost guarantee there were a bunch of people that changed the channel during this match. And that's not to criticize the ladies. It's just because there was absolutely no heat on this match as far as like a real reason to hook viewers in to want to watch it. I think a singles match, perhaps between Sky Blue and Ruby Soho, would have been more appropriate for this. They sort of tried to position Willow Nightingale as the up-and-coming star in this match. They were mentioning how she got that shock win over Mercedes Monet, the former Sasha Banks, in New Japan, and became the first New Japan World Women's Champion, or I can't remember the exact name for the championship, but they were talking about how Willow managed to get a win over her, and she was really positioned as sort of the star. However, Sky Blue is a star. She's stunningly beautiful. She has facial expressions. She's vocal in the ring when she moves around. The crowd were really behind her. I thought this match overall was actually a pretty good match. I gave it a C+. So next we moved on to a promo by the Acclaimed. The promo didn't really serve much of a purpose other than to sort of say anyone that may be watching this show that hasn't seen Dynamite before, the Acclaimed is going to be on this show and this is who we are. They did another Scissor Me Daddy thing. The Acclaimed are good. They're over. They're good talkers. They are definitely one of the few acts that I can see WWE being interested in someday when their contracts expire. So I liked what they had to offer here. I thought, Billy Gunn, in a weird way, fits with the Acclaimed as a character more than he did with his own sons. Like, because Colton and Austin Gunn wrestling in the jeans and stuff like that, it's almost like they're doing the Smoking Guns reincarnated, and Billy Gunn's still doing his sort of DX or New Age Outlaws version of Billy Gunn, which meshes better with the Acclaim. So it's an interesting dynamic. But I think that's what I like about the idea of Billy Gunn kind of being in an adversarial role against his own sons. I think that could be not only fun for them, but also a great opportunity for his sons to learn from him by working against him, not just listening to his advice and what have you. So I thought this was pretty good. It didn't overstay its welcome. It probably went for about 2 or 3 minutes. And, you know, if every single person in AEW on their roster had the confidence that Max Caster and Anthony Bowens do in terms of their mic work, I think that AEW would be a lot better overall. But it's just the simple fact that with the exception of Punk, the Acclaimed, and a few others, there aren't a lot of people in AEW, Christian Cage, there aren't a lot of people in AEW that are really great talkers. The Acclaimed are among those few. And now, already, just like that, as we approach, you know, the 21.5-minute mark, we are now up to the main event of the first episode of AEW Collision from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. It was CM Punk and FTR, Cash Wheeler and Dax Harwood, taking on Juice Robinson, Jay White, and let me just double check who the third person was here. I don't know why I didn't write it down. Okay, so I'm just taking a quick little look here. That's right, Samoa Joe, of course. How could I forget? That's right, Samoa Joe, up until this match that I'm about to talk about, this main event match, essentially had been treated like a non-factor in AEW. And I know that that's probably sounds crazy because Samoa Joe, obviously, storied career in TNA/Impact Wrestling before he ever went to WWE. Then he went to WWE, won a number of championships, including one of their world championships. He's been in the ring with all of them. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, John Cena. You know, he's held a number of other championships. He's, you know, had runs on commentary that were very well received. So he's a relatively big star that as soon as he went to AEW, he became just another guy on the roster. Until CM Punk returned here on this show and wanted Samoa Joe in this match because he wanted an opportunity to do something with his longtime close friend and storied rival in the wrestling business. And that the dynamic between CM Punk and Samoa Joe in this match was one of the main reasons why I was excited going into this. But I blanked on his name for a minute there because when you start to think about who are the top people in AEW right now, surprisingly enough, Samoa Joe is not one of those people that immediately pops into your mind. So Punk and FTR come out for the match, entrances, matching attire, crowd is going fucking nuts. This is the best tag team in the world, and I'd argue that he's probably, CM Punk I'm referring to now, is probably one of the top 10 professional wrestlers on the planet. So the three of these guys collectively, FTR and Punk, they are, in essence, one of the most formidable, most talented trios that could possibly be put into a match together in wrestling right now. So that alone really made it a bit of a, added to the big fight feel. Juice Robinson, Juice Robinson, I think he has an interesting look. Jim Ross was on the booth for this main event match. That added to its main event feel and its big fight feel that I was just talking about. FTR started the first part of this match out. They are just so smooth and crisp and like precise with everything that they do that it's just a joy to watch. Everyone in this match treated the rules seriously, and FTR and Punk in general always treat the rules seriously in their matches, as opposed to a lot of other people in AEW and even a number of people in WWE. And therefore, they're able to use those rules, the breaking of those rules or the skirting of those rules, to make interesting creative choices in the match that they're performing. And we saw a lot of that here today. Great idea that they had by not putting Punk in straight away. They put him in after a while to kind of, you know, so everyone could see him do a few things, but they did not put him in with Samoa Joe until a little bit later on in the match. I thought Jim Ross did a phenomenal job on commentary. I think Tony Khan may have found the ideal way to use Jim Ross. Make him your main event commentator. Make him the guy that comes out there and you, the greatest wrestling announcer of all time. He's in the golden years of his career. He's in the autumn years of his career, and so now you can say, you know, as part to add to the prestige and also to make it easier on Jim Ross himself, you can sort of say, all right, we're only wheeling out the greatest announcer in wrestling history for main event and or huge matches that are worthy of having an announcer of Jim Ross's caliber call. And so that idea was kind of set up by having him out here for this main event, and him doing such a great job only reinforced it. Picture in Picture showed up at this point in the match when I was really enjoying it, and I was really invested in this match. Picture in Picture can fuck off. That's what I wrote. Picture in Picture can fuck off. Because it's really annoying. Like, I literally just hit mute. Because it doesn't matter if you can still see what's happening in the match in a tiny box if you're listening to, oh, take out life insurance now. You're not getting any younger. Fuck off. Popped huge for Samoa Joe absolutely wiping out Dax Harwood with a clothesline. Just absolutely fucking decimated him. Very refreshing to see Dax Harwood take the heat instead of Cash Wheeler. Cash Wheeler typically tends to take the heat in FTR's matches, and he also typically seems to take the pins when they lose matches. So it was nice to see Dax taking the heat here. At this point, Juice Robinson began getting more and more involved in the match, and I haven't seen a ton of him, especially not in a long time. So this was really my first major look at him since he's been in AEW, and I wrote, if this match was a Christmas dinner, Juice Robinson is your crazy conspiracy theorist uncle. And I mean that in a good way, because he just has an interesting look, and he has that crazy wild haircut, and just, you know, he looks like someone that you'd sort of turn and pay some attention to in the airport, as the old wrestling adage goes. There was a great point brought up on commentary by Kevin Kelly about CM Punk's in-ring condition, which was a great in-universe kayfabe explanation for using Punk sparingly, given that it's his first match back and he's just coming back from injury and it's been over a year, etc. You don't want him getting injured straight away. So Kevin Kelly made a great point that FTR did take 3/4 of the match, and they were the ones working for their team for the majority of this, because Punk would be more vulnerable to a loss in kayfabe, and he would be more likely to make a mistake due to being just returned after such a long absence. I thought that was a really great piece of analysis by Kevin Kelly. Once again, treating it like it's a real sport makes all the difference in adding to the entertainment value of it. I thought that Samoa Joe looked nice and mean and tough as well, and it was more like the Samoa Joe that we're used to from Ring of Honor and TNA and the WWE when they used him correctly, because they were somewhat inconsistent at times with the way that they portrayed him. But in any case, I thought that every single person in this match looked fantastic. Everyone had their moment to shine. Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness are a fantastic duo. I thought that this was probably one of the largest broadcast shows that they've ever done live as a commentary team, and I thought they absolutely knocked it out of the park. Jim Ross, as I said just before, also incredible with his analysis in the main event. It felt like the Jim Ross that we all know and love, the classic Jim Ross. And even though I always, pop like crazy anytime Jim Ross subtly shits on the stupidity of the booking or the kayfabe logic in AEW, he had his A game on here today. He took everything 100% seriously, and he called this thing like it was a sport. Now, this match, in terms of match quality, did not exceed the quality of Andrade El Idolo versus Buddy Matthews, which I thought was match of the night. I ended up giving this a B+. I don't think I can quite give it a Jooseyboy recommendation because something tells me that this was really just more of a tune-up match and really just more of a little bit of a match to sort of start off Collision on the right note as a show, but they didn't really kick it into that next gear where it would approach being any kind of a classic. But as I said, the CM Punk promo at the beginning, that does have a Jooseyboy recommendation, so you do need to go out of your way to check it out. So my final thoughts, so that was the end of Dynamite. I'm sorry, not Dynamite, bloody idiot. That was the end of the debut episode of AEW Collision. CM Punk and FTR, of course, end up getting the victory in that match. The crowd goes home happy. They're all freaking wild. The crowd was really into this. And that really, I think that this overall was, it was a good card of matches and a good first episode. But I'll give some more detailed final thoughts here just before we get going. So if we take the premise that every episode of Collision will follow this basic format that this one did, in terms of it only goes for an hour long as opposed to the 2 hours. It's faster. It was snappier. There was more just solid matches that had meaning behind them. Based off of that, this is what Dynamite should have been from day one. This is what Dynamite or the AEW product in general should have been like this from day one. Like, this is what I expected when they first started discussing AEW and its imminent arrival in pro wrestling, and the fact that it was going to be more of a sports-based product. This was what I expected all the way back then. We didn't get. And something else I wanted to just bring up quickly was during the main event for this show, when they had picture-in-picture, which they actually managed to have picture-in-picture twice in the main event, and it made me want to crack my own skull open and yeah. But during picture-in-picture, one of the commercials that they showed was an ad for next week's episode of Dynamite. And the clips that they showed was all the Young Bucks doing all their crazy stuff and all the weird taunts and a bunch of fireworks and a bunch of Kenny Omega doing the pointing thing and all that. And I thought, how is that for contrast? This episode of AEW Collision, the first episode, I would go out of my way to, I'm considering possibly checking this out and reviewing it next week and giving it an opportunity to become an ongoing review series. The ship has long since sailed with the idea of doing that on AEW Dynamite. And I think the contrast in that was really quite extraordinary when you break it down. So overall, I thought that this was a very tightly produced, very, very energetic vibrant debut episode of television for AEW. I like the main stars that they're building the roster around. I thought everyone worked really hard. I thought it had a nice different look from AEW, and I think that the main event ended up possibly being the only truly good six-man tag AEW has had up to this point. I potentially believe there could be a new main program for AEW, and it isn't Dynamite. So that brings me to the end of my review for AEW Collision, the first episode from the United Center in Chicago, Illinois. We want to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Reach out to us. Let us know. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you not bother to watch it at all? Whose side are you on in this CM Punk versus Young Bucks Elite Kenny Omega drama? Do you think it matters to this show or not? Sound off. Let us know what you think. We also want to hear comments, criticism, feedback about the network itself. How can we improve? How can we entertain you more? Let us know. But this has been my review for AEW Collision, and you have been listening to JOOSEYBOY, Jooseyboy. That's where you can find me on all socials. Just stick an @ in front of it, and I'll pop right up. So this has been your AEW Collision review, and until next time, I'll see you down the road.
Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.